Hey, welcome back to the Crabby Dice. Today we're going to be looking at the Speicherstadt, which is my favorite auction game. So what's the theme to this game? We're going to be like merchants or trading house people in Hamburg. Doesn't really matter. It's an awesome bidding game. This is going to be the rules and setup video. If you want to see my playthrough and thoughts on the game, click on the link below. And before we get started, like usual, please like, subscribe, and comment on my YouTube channel. That would be fantastic. Let's go. Alright, let's look at the setup. So first you're going to lay out your game board. Next you're going to take care of your deck of cards. So you're going to have 4 different lettered decks, so A, B, C, and D. What you're going to do is shuffle them all separately, and then put the D on top of the E card, the C on top of the Ds, the B's on top of the C's, and finally, you guessed it, the A's on top of the B's. And this is the deck you'll be using throughout the game. Okay, you can put your money on the side of the board as well as all your goods cubes. Put them in the bag and just set the bag on the side of the board. You're going to put one of each player's meeples on the 0 space of the point track. Next, you're going to give each player 3 meeples, $5, and their haul card here. And just do that for every single player. So I'm going to simulate a 3-player game here. Sort of like that. You're pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to say, if you are not playing with 4 players, in the D deck there are some cards that you need to remove, but that's only if you're playing with less than 4 or more than 4. Alright, so the Speicherstadt at its core is just a bidding game, but it uses a genius mechanisms to fluctuate the prices of cards. Alright, so the players are actually going to decide the price by the amount of meeples that are present in the column of the cards. Okay, so the more meeples that are in a column, the more expensive a card is for that person to purchase. Alright, and then he has to really make a choice. Does he want that card or pass, which makes it cheaper for the next person because you're removing his meeple, and it becomes cheaper and cheaper till finally somebody buys the card. Alright, it's a great mechanism. So the game is also a point scoring game, so the person at the end of the game with the most victory points is going to win. So that's just like most Euros, and the game's going to last about 10 rounds, give or take, and the last round is going to be the one with this fire card. I'm going to talk about fires in one of the following sections, but just to give you an idea, when this fire card is the last card on the top of the deck, it's going to trigger the last round. You're just going to deal with this fire, and then you're going to go to final scoring. Okay. Alright, so how does every round work? Okay, so there's going to be the same 5 phases every single round. First, we're going to be putting out cards. Next, we're going to be bidding. Next, we're going to be paying for our bids. Next, we're going to be manipulating cubes. And finally, we're going to get some income. Alright, so I'm going to talk about each of those phases in detail now. Alright, the first phase is the supply phase, where we're going to be filling up the cards in the market, right? So you're going to flip over as many cards as there are for the amount of players plus 1. You can also tell by the board how many you need to flip over. So in a 3-player game, we're going to flip over 4 cards. And the only extra step you need to do is, if you ever flip over a ship, that's when you're actually going to go into your bag and you're going to take out the amount of cubes needed to fill up that ship. So in this case, it would be 3. Alright, phase 2 is the demand phase, which is, you can sort of think of it as the bidding phase. You're not actually bidding, but what you do with your meeples will affect the price of the cards for the next phase. Alright, so you're each going to take a turn placing a meeple. So the person with the start card is going to start, and you're just going to go around the table in clockwise fashion, placing out a meeple. Alright, so a couple of rules. You always place closest to the card. If a column completely fills up, you can't place it anymore, so there's exactly 8 slots per card. It's possible for a card to not be bid on. In that case, it'll just be discarded at the end of the round. And you can even place on top of your own meeple, as I'll show you right now. So let's just show you with an example. Let's say I went there. Let's say orange went there. Let's say yellow, white went there. And just a random example here like this. Let's just say it ended like this. Alright, phase 3 is the purchasing phase, where you're actually going to be buying the cards that everyone bid on. Okay, so the way this works is you're going to go card by card, alright, and you're going to evaluate every card, and the person's going to choose whether they want to buy the card or not. Alright, so let me just explain it to you with an example here. So the person with the meeple closest to the card could purchase that card equal to the number of meeples that are in that whole column. So for example here, purple can buy this card if they pay $3 into the general supply. If they do want to pay it, so they'll pay 3 into the general supply, they'll take the card, put it in front of them, and then every other meeple that's in that column basically gets discarded back to their owner. Okay, Now, if they don't want to purchase it, they get that meeple back, and then it'll move on to the next player. So for example, let's say purple didn't want to buy this for 3 because maybe they thought it was too expensive. They'll take their meeple back, and now orange is going to have a choice. Obviously, they have 2 meeples in a row, so they're going to not buy it with the first one, right? Because that would cost 2, and then they decide to buy it for only 1 because there's only 1 meeple left. So for 1 coin, they'll pick up the card with all the goods on it and place it in front of them. All right, and you're going to do that for every single card. So let's say we move on to the next card here. Let's say purple does want to buy this card. So they're going to pay 2. They're going to take this card in front of them. All the meeples get returned. We'll move on to this one. Let's say white pays 1 to pick up this card. And now we get to this card. So let's say again, white doesn't want to pay for this card for 3. So gets the meeple returned. And then we'll say orange does want this card. So they'll pay 2. And they'll pick up the card. The meeple's returned. And that's basically how you pay for the cards. Alright, phase 4 is the loading phase, and that's where everyone's gonna pretty much do this at the exact same time, and you're gonna manipulate all the cubes that are currently on your board. Alright, so you can have cubes that came on ships, and you have cubes that were either in your hall or in warehouses in your play area. Okay, and you're trying to do a couple of things with these cubes. First of all is trying to complete contracts. So you can use cubes and place them on contracts, and the color of the item on the contract is the good that it needs. So example, white for white, green for green, red for red. So here I would have completed the contract. It would score at the end of the game, but you don't need to fill up the contract in one go. You can fill up as many as you want. Once a cube is placed on a contract, it can never be removed or moved around. Okay. The other thing you can do with cubes is there are 5 different types of merchants in the game. For each of the 5 different types of goods, you can send cubes to the merchant to get money. So you discard this into the stock and pick up as many coins as the amount of resources that you sent in. So in this case, I would get 2 coins. Just a general note, whenever you have to discard cubes in this game, it always goes to a general stock area. The game starts with none, but we're going to start creating them as soon as people start using up cubes, and never back in the bag. Okay, that's very, very important. Cubes never go back in the bag. Okay, and then once you're done manipulating your cubes, it's very important to note that you can only carry over cubes equal to the crates that are visible on your board, right? So your hall here, you could sort of carry over only 1 cube from round to round. Like, let's say I didn't have this warehouse, then I would have to sort of discard this red cube because I would not be able to store it anywhere. But if I do have a warehouse, then I can store it in the warehouse. And another thing you can do to try to waste cubes is you can exchange 3 of any type for 1 in the stock only. So it needs to be in the stock for you to get that good. Or just discard 2 to get a coin. So let's say I had 3 extra cubes here, and I didn't have these 2 cards. From round to round, maybe I would have discarded these 2 for a coin, and then maybe I would have saved this green one in my warehouse, mini warehouse in my hall here to use for next turn. Obviously I would have put in my contract, but this is just an example. Alright, phase 5 is the income phase. It's probably the easiest phase. You're all going to get 1 coin from the bank. Special note, if you didn't get a card that round, you'll actually get an extra coin, so you get 2. Okay, and that's it. You're going to pass the first player marker to the next player, so it's going to be the card if you have the expansion, or the metal coin if you're not playing with the expansion, and there you go, you go to the next round. Alright, finally we're going to talk about fires. Alright, so fires could happen during the first phase, which is the supply phase. So whenever you're filling up the cards, alright, and a fire appears, so it's cards that look like this, you're actually going to halt the game. Alright, that card is not going to actually stay forbidding, but what's going to happen is everyone's going to compare the amount of firemen that they have in their play area, and whoever has the most is going to score points equal to the card number. So here the first one's going to be 1 point. So in this example here, yellow will get a point. And then whoever is in last or doesn't have any firemen is going to lose points equal to that number. So in this case, it would be white will lose a point. Now, there's an important note. For any ties whatsoever you both share, so let's say these two players had 3, then they would both gain a point. Or if both these players had 0, then they would both lose a point. If everyone is tied, then nobody gains or loses a point, but that's extremely rare. After dealing with the fire, it gets discarded to the discard pile, and you're going to replace that card. So you're still going to put out the 4 cards that you need in a 3-player game. And now let's talk about final scoring. So there's a few things that on your player area that will score at the end of the game and add to your point value on the track. All right, so there are some cards that will give you straight up victory points. So those are easy to calculate. For your contract, only completed contracts will score you points. Incomplete contracts will not score any points. So here I would score 8 but not score the 5 here. Okay. Extra goods will not score you anything. Each of your merchants will score 1 point. For the counting offices here, you can look at the chart. So if you have 1, it's 2 points. If you have 2, it's 5 points. So in this case, I'll get 5, and so on and so on. If you have 4 of them, you'll score 14 points. Then you have special cards like here, the port. You'll score a point for every ship that you got in your display. So I will get another point here. And then finally, the Chamber of Commerce. You'll get a point for each coin you have at the end of the game. So in this case, I'll get 2. You tally all that together. Whoever has the most points is going to win the game. So those are all the rules to the Speicherstadt. And click on the link below for the playthrough. If not, we'll see you in the next one. Later.